he descended toward the earth, the blade plunging directly into the ground. Boom! As his supernatural power surged, a colossal forest erupted from beneath the earth, charging toward the evil demon. In mere moments, Zhang Yi conjured a vast primeval jungle. Thick vines, like giant serpents, coiled and constricted toward the evil demon. The evil demon cracked his neck, charging forward without fear. He appeared skeletal and ghostly, yet his body seemed to contain inexhaustible power. The massive vines before him were torn to shreds by his claws as easily as paper. Yet the true power of the sword in the tree lay in its infinite regeneration. The vines torn apart by the evil demon quickly sprouted anew from their severed stumps. Endless tendrils coiled toward his body. The evil demon was soon engulfed by a sea of vines. Countless tendrils tightened, trapping him within a massive green cage. Beneath Mount Fudo, a gigantic vine sphere hundreds of meters in diameter appeared, continuously expanding. Yet in the blink of an eye, blinding light burst through the vine's gaps. Boom! The vine sphere shattered instantly. The evil demon soared into the air, then lunged at Zhang Yi, claws bared. Unnoticed, 2 pairs of black wings had sprouted from his back, jet black and coated with a sickening slime. A beast-type mutant, Zhang Yi remarked calmly. Unfazed, he aimed the sword in the tree in his hand at the airborne evil demon, unleashing another torrent of vines. The sword in the tree's vines feared no destruction. With Zhang Yi's supernatural energy, they could sustain prolonged growth, producing vast quantities of tendrils. Moreover, Zhang Yi carried ample supplies, eliminating any concern about running out of supernatural energy. This was arguably the most troublesome weapon imaginable. Only when you faced it directly did you truly grasp its relentless nature. The evil demon, suspended mid-air, witnessed this scene, and a flash of disgust indeed flickered in its eyes. Countless vines coiled like colossal dragons, suddenly unfurling like petals as they neared his body, spreading into a vast net poised to ensnare him. The evil demon opened his mouth, unleashing the outer path netherfire cannon once more. It sliced through like a razor-sharp sword, shredding all the vines to pieces. That fleeting instant was enough for him to lunge toward Zhang Yi. At this moment, Zhang Yi could confirm one thing. The evil demon's ability could only absorb energy-based attacks. It was powerless against physical assaults. This means your rebound attacks will weaken. You pose no threat to me. Of course, you likely have other tricks up your sleeve. Let's see what you've got. Zhang Yi smiled faintly. The instant the evil demon child closed in, he activated the dimensional gate, instantly creating distance between them. The evil demon froze for a moment, then a savage grin spread across his face. With a flash, he pursued Zhang Yi, who had materialized mid-air. Zhang Yi continued harassing him with the sword in the tree. But the creature moved with astonishing agility, using his wings to fly through the air. When not grounded, the sword in the tree's swiftness was clearly restricted. It couldn't lock down the evil demon's movements in time. Now, unable to use his most powerful attack, Zhang Yi had no choice but to keep widening the gap between them. Yet, when he attempted to activate his space shuffle ability once more, it failed to complete the displacement after reaching a certain boundary. Behind him, an invisible barrier had materialized, obstructing his teleportation. Zhang Yi's pupils contracted sharply as he reached behind him to touch the area. Unbeknownst to him, vast swathes of space surrounding Mount Fudo had been sealed by a barrier. Did these bastards prepare countermeasures long before my arrival? Standing high above, Zhang Yi surveyed the scene below. His supernatural senses clearly traced mysterious energies rising like currents from Edeto's 4 cardinal directions, converging in the sky to form a colossal barrier. The source of this power lay in some ancient temples within Edeto City. Vast, ethereal torii gates spanned the sky, seemingly suppressing something as they formed the barrier. Torii gates were among the most crucial sealing artifacts in Shintoism, commonly found before shrine entrances. They served to suppress evil spirits. And now, in the eyes of the Neon people, the outsider Zhang Yi was no different from an evil spirit. This is getting a bit troublesome. Zhang Yi furrowed his brow slightly. The barrier's emergence prevented him from leaving freely, confining him to navigate within a limited space. The evil demon seemed to have understood this long ago. At the very least, he was aware of Zhang Yi's spatial abilities and had prepared this countermeasure. Ha ha ha. He let out a savage laugh, vanishing from his spot like lightning before hurtling toward Zhang Yi like a cannonball. His terrifying maw open wide, the outer path netherfire cannon once again locked onto Zhang Yi, slicing at the dimensional gate like a sword thousands of meters long. Whoosh! The outer path netherfire cannon fired at the dimensional gate. Yet Zhang Yi merely smiled. Without having absorbed Zhang Yi's attack first, the evil demon's power on its own was utterly incapable of breaching his dimensional gate. While the title Absolute Defense wasn't entirely accurate, its defensive properties regarding the dimensional gate were undeniable. Realizing his attack couldn't breach Zhang Yi's defense, the evil demon's gaze darkened. Just as the title suggests, a turtle shell impossible to crack. Upon reaching the Epsilon realm, no otherworldly being was a failure, they were all extraordinary geniuses. Killing an Epsilon head-on was exceptionally difficult unless one possessed overwhelming superiority in power. The evil demon spread his hands. This suits me perfectly. I can take my time playing with you. He opened his arms wide. After all, this is my turf. He was right, this was his turf. But as an outsider, Zhang Yi couldn't afford to engage in endless battle here. The longer the fight dragged on, the more disadvantageous it became for them. Never mind the constant reinforcements pouring in from the Royal Demon Court mutant or the unpredictable Columbia Navy. Even the 100 Demon Knight parade below would cause them immense trouble. Flower could hold them off for a time, but one mutant beast against a horde of undead monsters would inevitably lead to trouble. Thus, from the start, Zhang Yi's plan was to directly obliterate the evil demon head-on and then enter the Heavenly Guardian Palace. If he didn't find a way to break the stalemate, he and the evil demon could battle it out for a month. Huff! Zhang Yi exhaled a cloud of stale breath, his gaze coldly fixed on the evil demon below. In this world, there has never been such a thing as absolute defense. Even I, Zhang Yi, wouldn't dare claim my everything under heaven is invincible. So what gives you the right? He extended his left hand toward the evil demon, index and middle fingers pressed together. Nothing is indestructible. With sufficient power, even the strongest defense will be shattered. Divine Realm Netherworld Cleansing. The most potent instant cast attack within medium to short range was unleashed. The evil demon had no idea such an attack was coming. Without warning or trace, it targeted his body directly. In an instant, his ravenous, ghost-like form was violently compressed toward its core by a colossal force. Snap! The sound of snapping bones rang out clearly as his body twisted into an unnatural contortion, nearly compressed into a sphere. Gurgle! A large mouthful of blood spurted from his mouth. Pain caused his face to distort, yet his eyes held an indescribable sense of exhilaration. His body rapidly heated up. Despite sustaining immense damage, he forcibly absorbed the force. Then, an outer path netherfire cannon fired toward Zhang Yi's direction. This time, however, Zhang Yi knew his intent and chose not to block it head-on. The ability of everything follows the trail had been activated the moment he struck. Thus, Zhang Yi utilized his space shuffle ability to evade the attack, sharp as a surgical sword. The crimson-red beam shot toward the distant sky, blazing brilliantly against the pitch-black night. Zhang Yi observed the twisted form of the evil demon, gaining another piece of intelligence. His defenses had their limits, sufficiently powerful force could inflict severe injury upon him. Indeed, there was even a chance to kill him outright. However, there's one rather troublesome aspect. Zhang Yi fixed his gaze upon the evil demon. As his body plummeted through the air, it rapidly unfolded. The broken bones and wings were swiftly repaired. Soon, he hovered mid-air once more, restored to his previous form. Ha ha ha. That felt good. So you do have stronger techniques after all. Come on, bring it on. The evil demon roared with a savage laugh. Facing the troublesome evil demon, Zhang Yi felt no panic within. The unknown is always the hardest to deal with, but once you understand an opponent's abilities, especially their weaknesses, they become much easier to handle. This is precisely why Zhang Yi always emphasized that intelligence is paramount in battles between mutants. Yet, the evil demon possessed formidable self-healing abilities. Instant defeat seemed unlikely. Would the opponent simply heal endlessly? Impossible. Supernatural power consumption has its limits. Therefore, relentless, continuous assault will shatter his boundaries. Zhang Yi retrieved supernatural sustenance from the alternate dimension and began replenishing his energy. From this moment onward, he would launch his assault in a frenzied, unrestrained manner. As the supernatural food passed his lips, the sensation of lost power returning washed over him. Zhang Yi fixed his gaze upon the evil demon, his eyes brimming with a spreading tide of murderous intent. The evil demon sensed this too. His eyes grew even more frenzied as he spread his arms wide, taunting Zhang Yi. "Come on. Let's see which one of us dies first. But I'll tell you this, it'll definitely be you." Even the shadow spectator remarked, "Within Edo City, the evil demon cannot be killed." Zhang Yi remained silent. Behind him, a colossal void vortex began to manifest. The power drawn from the void was Zhang Yi's greatest source of strength. Potent void energy condensed at the tip of the sword in the tree, then erupted violently toward the evil demon. A simple yet devastatingly lethal technique, condensing the void. The pitch-black void energy transformed into a slender beam stretching thousands of meters, striking the evil demon in the chest. The force of this strike actually pierced through the evil demon's chest. Clearly, the lethal power of the divine realm netherworld cleansing hadn't been fully extinguished. The wound on his chest still remained. After suffering this secondary injury, his body was instantly pierced through. The void longsword impaled the evil demon, hurtling straight toward Mount Fudo, and pierced right through the entire mountain. The evil demon now looked utterly wretched, like a tattered garment hung on a clothesline. He stared down at the wound in his chest. Beneath his pain-twisted face lay an expression of frenzied, exhilarated delight. The void longsword vanished. The evil demon plummeted from the sky. White substance oozed from his chest, repairing his wounds. Scorching air currents surged from his body as immense energy began to coalesce within his mouth. Zhang Yi hesitated not a moment. The dimensional gate behind him opened, ready for escape at any instant. The evil demon's form shifted once more. His limbs extended, arms and legs stretching to nearly 2 meters in length. He sprawled across the ground, resembling the malevolent specters of neon urban legends. His eyes burned with malice as he fixed them on Zhang Yi. The outer path netherfire cannon in his mouth gathered immense energy, poised to unleash a fatal strike. This strike could wound him, or even pierce through Zhang Yi's dimensional gate. After all, this was an absolutely devastating strike unleashed by Zhang Yi himself, a force so immense even his own dimensional gate couldn't withstand it. Boom! Having locked onto Zhang Yi's position, the attack erupted. In the blink of an eye, it reached before Zhang Yi, leaving no perceptible time lag. Yet, just as the outer path netherfire cannon was about to strike Zhang Yi, he vanished from his original spot. In the blink of an eye, Zhang Yi materialized from another direction. The evil demon's attack missed its mark. Zhang Yi floated lightly down from the air, preparing to launch a new round of attacks against the evil demon. He had already discerned that while the evil demon seemed to repair his injuries each time, it required time. If the damage was inflicted by sufficiently powerful force, it couldn't be fully healed in the short term. That was only logical. Otherwise, instantly repairing all injuries would be an ability far too terrifying. Seeing his attack miss yet again, the evil demon's eyes flashed with disbelief. Impossible. Why does he evade every single one of my attacks? Not just the evil demon, but even the 3 shadowy figures in the distance wore increasingly grave expressions. The evil demon's netherfire cannon, the greater the energy it gathers, the higher its attack power and speed can climb. Logically, that Dragon Kingdom brat's movement speed should be utterly incapable of dodging it. Unless... Another shadow glanced at him before continuing, unless he anticipated the attack's trajectory in advance. You mean he possesses a time-manipulating ability? That is truly terrifying. Dual attributes of time and space are exceedingly rare. Did our intelligence fail us? All three shadows were visibly shaken. They stared intently at Zhang Yi on the battlefield, their eyes flickering with murderous intent. One shadow spoke up, "Then we should strike now and kill him. Letting this bastard live could become a massive threat to us later." Another figure countered, "Impossible. We cannot act now. Doing so would invite utter annihilation." The figure fell silent, pondering for a long while before finally choosing to remain quiet. The battle between Zhang Yi and the evil demon raged on. The longer the fight lasted, the deeper their mutual understanding grew. Zhang Yi had already discerned that the evil demon's healing speed was limited. As long as he could sustain relentless attacks and finish him off before recovery, victory would be his. The evil demon likely noticed this too. Zhang Yi could anticipate his attack trajectories. Zhang Yi flickered ceaselessly through the air, making it impossible for the evil demon to track his movements. Then came an utterly unblockable divine realm netherworld cleansing. The overwhelming pressure left the evil demon gravely wounded. Zhang Yi observed that whenever wounds appeared on its body, white, wriggling substances emerged from within, sealing the injuries. "It doesn't matter. Now that I've found your weakness, I can slowly kill you. It won't take too long." The ability of everything follows the trail, with a time prediction of 2 seconds, gave Zhang Yi complete initiative in the battle. The evil demon's attack style was utterly ineffective against him. At this moment, the evil demon clearly realized this as well. He lay sprawled on the ground, his eyes filled with vicious, savage hatred as he glared up at Zhang Yi in the air. Suddenly, an inexplicable smile spread across his face. Then, his body underwent an eerie transformation. His abdomen swelled high, as if something was about to be born. The next moment, he raised his head toward Zhang Yi and let out a loud wah, as he spat out a large mass of white substance. The instant Zhang Yi saw that substance, his expression turned extremely grim. The evil demon opened his huge mouth, spewing forth a large mass of white substance that shot straight toward the air. Zhang Yi was initially startled and puzzled, unsure what kind of attack he intended to launch. But upon seeing the true nature of that thing, his face contorted into an expression of utter disgust, as if he'd just swallowed a live fly. For what he had spat out was a massive, white worm, dozens of centimeters long. Its head was encircled by a ring of pitch-black darkness. Despite its enormous size, the first thing Zhang Yi could think of upon seeing it was only one thing: maggots. The evil demon, Mouthagape, actually sprayed a torrent of giant maggots from its mouth. They shot skyward like bullets, hurtling straight toward Zhang Yi. "Shit!" Zhang Yi blurted out a profanity in sheer terror. Anyone seeing such a swarm of giant maggots writhing toward them would be utterly repulsed. He immediately activated his space shuffle ability to flee the area. The evil demon continued his bug-spewing rampage, casually scattering countless giant maggots. Most terrifyingly, those maggots could hover mid-air, then pursue Zhang Yi's direction. The sky, the ground, the forest, everywhere was swarming with these maggots. Wherever they passed, everything on the earth withered. Zhang Yi's pupils contracted sharply. He hovered mid-air as a vast swarm of maggots closed in on him. Gazing at those writhing, snow-white things, he nearly vomited up his breakfast. Not just him, even Yang Xinxin and Mu Yan, hiding within shadow space, were gagging. These creatures made the usually composed Yang Xinxin shiver uncontrollably, unable to bear looking directly at them. These things. They can absorb energy. Zhang Yi fought back his nausea. Though he too loathed these disgusting creatures, what hellish realms hadn't he witnessed over the years? Rotting corpses, the stinking hell of the Skull Mound, he'd seen it all. He developed a certain resilience to such sights. But now, he finally understood where the evil demon's ability to absorb attack energy came from. The evil demon itself was a colossal host, concealing a vast swarm of giant maggots within his stomach. Gritting his teeth against the nausea, Zhang Yi unleashed a divine realm netherworld cleansing strike. In an instant, the swarm of maggots was violently compressed into a single mass. Pfft! A distinct squelching sound echoed through the air as the maggots shattered under the pressure, their foul-smelling slime splattering down in a torrent. What Zhang Yi hadn't anticipated was that his divine realm netherworld cleansing hadn't killed all the maggots. A significant portion had survived his assault. Being soft-bodied creatures, such an attack provided them sufficient resilience when their companions perished. Below, the evil demon continued spewing maggots. In the blink of an eye, the entire area was swarming with the vile creatures. Only after a long while did the evil demon cease its spewing. A sickening, foul-smelling mucus dripped from the corners of his mouth as he looked up maniacally at Zhang Yi in the sky. Enjoy the taste of being drained dry by my little darlings. The evil demon, Lord of the Royal Demon Court. Ability code, Nomadic World. Those writhing, gigantic maggots were a herd of caged monsters, existing solely to devour everything. Faced with this scene, Zhang Yi felt his scalp crawl with horror. Maggots were everywhere. No matter how he used Space Shuffle, as long as he remained confined within the space surrounding Mount Fudo, he would be eroded by these insects. Yet he had no choice but to act, for these maggots had already burrowed into his dimensional space. Then, they began frantically draining the energy from Zhang Yi's dimensional space. They possessed incredibly robust physical bodies, even Zhang Yi would struggle greatly to kill them. Especially after entering the dimensional space, even Zhang Yi found himself somewhat helpless against them. After all, strictly speaking, the alternate space existed solely as a storage dimension. Beyond trapping and killing opponents, it possessed no other offensive capabilities. Hordes of maggots invaded Zhang Yi's alternate space, yet he couldn't dispel them. If he did, these creatures would crawl directly onto his body. Zhang Yi's face turned pale, not from fear, but from the natural reaction any human would have. Damn Neon, this is just sickeningly twisted. Zhang Yi cursed fiercely. He had no choice but to sacrifice the outer ring of dimensional gates to temporarily stall the maggots' advance. But this wasn't a sustainable solution. After devouring his alternate dimension, these maggots would grow stronger, then proceed to consume his next layer of alternate space. Zhang Yi drew his pistol, relentlessly firing at them. But these creatures were incredibly hard to kill. Their numbers were overwhelming, and it often took 2 or 3 bullets to completely eliminate a single maggot. The evil demon laughed maniacally, seemingly reveling in Zhang Yi's predicament. He flapped his wings, soaring skyward to strike. The situation had taken a drastic turn for the worse. Zhang Yi's eyebrows shot upward as his mind raced, searching for a solution. His pride, the power of the void, couldn't swiftly end this battle now. Physical attacks were the optimal solution. Then, a ruthless glint flashed in Zhang Yi's eyes. You forced my hand. Physical attacks weren't his forte. But when it came to power-ups, he had plenty. Everything under heaven, the gate of 3,000 realms, opened completely. Countless black barrels of guns and cannons extended from the dimensional gate, densely packed, nearly obscuring the entire sky. The sheer number of firearms formed a massive sphere around Zhang Yi's body, pointing in every direction, leaving no blind spots. Such a display caused even the previously smug evil demon to show a look of astonishment. Fire! With a sweeping gesture from Zhang Yi, the intelligent system linked to the firing mechanisms. Instantly, hundreds of thousands of guns and cannons unleashed an indiscriminate attack in all directions. The relentless barrage of fire, denser than a torrential downpour, poured forth without restraint. The sky seemed to ignite with a colossal fireball, blindingly hot, its intense radiance obscuring everything. Even combatants on other battlefields were rendered speechless by the spectacle. They could see nothing, for the blinding light of the 100,000 level guns was too overwhelming. They could hear nothing either, as the deafening roar threatened to shatter their eardrums. The evil demon felt only a blinding flash of fire before his entire body was pelted by an unrelenting barrage of bullets. Thousands per second slammed into him relentlessly, slamming him hard into the earth. Following that came the shattered maggots, each one exploding mid-air into white slurry from the impact. Nothing in the realm of military force is simpler or purer than the artillery barrage of an entire legion. In this world, only Zhang Yi could launch such an assault, by the strength of a single man. All around Mount Fudo were stunned by this strike, some even believing it to be a replay of the catastrophe that struck Neon's twin cities a century ago. By the time the evil demon sensed the pain, his body had already been violently slammed into the ground by immense force. The maggots he had expelled were obliterated in the blast. No matter how sturdy the body, it could not withstand the relentless barrage of artillery fire. Just as Zhang Yi had anticipated, while these maggots could devour energy, they couldn't directly absorb the kinetic energy of bullets and shrapnel. Even with formidable defense, being torn apart was an unavoidable fate. The magnificent barrage of fire soon ceased. Hovering mid-air, Zhang Yi was surrounded by guns and cannons like a colossal steel manosphere. In this moment, he was the undisputed king of war. Surveying his surroundings, he saw every last maggot utterly annihilated. Zhang Yi drew a deep breath. Damn, I just blew through a ton of ammunition. When I get back, I'll have Karen restock me properly. A single bombing run could sustain a small-scale 1,000-man war. The resources squandered were no laughing matter. Fortunately, Zhang Yi was well stocked. He looked down at the earth, fixing his gaze on the direction of the evil demon. Now that the energy-absorbing worms inside you are dead, let's see if you can withstand a direct hit from me. Zhang Yi raised the sword in the tree in his hand, and the massive void vortex behind him surged forth once more. Dark energy condensed at the sword's tip, swiftly forming a colossal sphere of void energy. The blade's tip aimed directly at the direction of the evil demon, who was only just beginning to crawl out from deep within the ground. In Zhang Yi's eyes, the evil demon's form did not move an inch. This meant that within the next 2 seconds, the evil demon's thoughts were not on escape, but on facing Zhang Yi's attack head-on once more. How arrogant, you brat! Then I shall kill you. Boom! A jet-black energy beam erupted from the tip of the sword in the tree, instantly piercing the space between them and striking the evil demon squarely in the chest. Then, it tore right through him. The evil demon could no longer block Zhang Yi's assault. The massive release of nomadic insects within his body had severely weakened his ability to devour energy. The long beam of light ripped through his chest, nearly splitting his entire body in two. The moment the energy vanished, he crashed heavily to the ground from high above, his wound horrifyingly gruesome. Only a thin layer of skin and flesh remained at the edges, connecting the upper and lower halves of his torso. The 3 shadowy figures watching from the sidelines were also somewhat astonished. How tragic! Since his debut, the evil demon has never suffered such devastating injuries. Another shadow turned to the others. If this weren't Edeto, he'd be dead. That youth from the Dragon Country truly possesses formidable power. Though we hate to admit it, the strength of that civilization might surpass our own. What should we do? Should we intervene directly? No need. This is Edeto. He won't die here. As if to confirm their conversation, the evil demon lay on the ground, his gaze vacant as he stared up at the sky. Yet his face bore no expression of pain or despair. Instead, it showed excitement. It had been far too long since someone had pushed him to such a desperate edge. The searing agony of his body being torn apart ignited an indescribable thrill within him. He drifted back to memories before the apocalypse. Back then, he was merely a homeless beggar on the streets. To survive, he had to scavenge through trash bins daily for scraps. What stuck with him most was the sight of maggots crawling over the stinking garbage when he lifted the filthy bin lids. Those creatures would devour every last bit of nourishment in the food. No matter how foul the environment, their writhing forms were always visible. Evil Demon was disgusted by these vile things. Yet, over time, he found himself afraid they might not be around. Because a trash bin without maggots likely held no food at all. He was like the maggots of this city. Filthy, unwanted, ignored by everyone, met only with looks of disgust. He greedily sifted through the city's trash heaps, feeding on nutrients others discarded, just to survive like a maggot. This world turned me into a filthy maggot, so I'll turn this world into a giant shithole. Ha ha ha. The evil demon laughed with unrestrained glee. He rose to his feet. The gaping hole in his chest began to writhe as dozens of maggots surged in from other wounds, spewing white mucus to mend his body. The evil demon lifted his head, gazing up at Zhang Yi in the sky. Chaos, you have the honor of witnessing my true form. He spread his arms wide, as if embracing this vast cesspool. Nomadic world. The highest tier. The moment the words fell, his body exploded with a thunderous boom. Like opening Pandora's box, countless maggots surged out in a frenzied tide, as relentless as a flood. Simultaneously, throughout the entire city of Edeto, the seedlings in standby mode lifted their heads one by one. They opened their mouths, and with a plop, a massive white maggot emerged. Plop! The same sound echoed throughout Edeto. The maggots crawled out of the seed people's mouths, their slime-covered bodies swiftly crawling across the entire streets of Edeto. Hundreds of thousands of white maggots crawled madly toward Mount Fudo from all directions. The white maggots converged into an ocean. Such a scene would cause extreme physical discomfort to any human witness. Zhang Yi witnessed this scene, forcing back the nausea welling in his chest. Had he not already seen the scene of the evil demon spewing maggots, this sight would have made him vomit on the spot. Now I finally understand what these hosts are all about. The evil demon had turned the entire city of Edeto into a petri dish for his maggots, with maggots growing inside every host's body. And this is how he gained his immense power. Such a vile, filthy method was enough to make one's scalp crawl. This approach was utterly too much for Zhang Yi to fathom. Yet, coming from a beggar living at the very bottom of Edo society, it somehow didn't feel surprising. Brother. Ugh. Do we have enough weapons to last the rest of the fight? Ugh. Yang Xinxin spoke between retches. Zhang Yi sighed helplessly, gazing down at the maggot sea engulfing all of Edo. He shook his head. Our weapon stockpile is nowhere near enough to wipe out this entire maggot ocean. Under the cover of night, the entire city of Edo transformed into a sea of maggots. These colossal maggots, the smallest as long as an adult's arm, the largest monstrous creatures stretching a terrifying meter or two. They writhed like twisted rivers, surging toward the Mount Fudo region in wave upon wave. Even Zhang Yi, witnessing this scene, furrowed his brow, fighting back the urge to vomit. The current situation was truly difficult to handle. These were hundreds of thousands of maggots capable of devouring energy entities. The best way to annihilate them all was through physical attacks. However, the Lord of War technique could only be used once in a short period of time. At the very least, Zhang Yi couldn't reload those guns and cannons again right now. Yet his other methods struggled to kill such a vast number of maggots. Even his pride and joy, dimensional space, would be eroded by these terrifying insects and slowly destroyed. Beneath Mount Fudo, amidst the sea of maggots, the voice of the evil demon slowly echoed. Chaos, you are indeed formidable. This time, you've cost me at least 100,000. Therefore, you must die. The evil demon's form emerged from the maggot sea. But this time, he had completely lost his human appearance. Before Zhang Yi stood a twisted, monstrous creature. It was not human, but a being with two pairs of dark gray, translucent wings, slender limbs, and a body entirely covered in hard, dark gray carapace. It resembled a mosquito tens of meters long, or a repulsive, foul-smelling mantis with wings. Zhang Yi stared at it with grave eyes. So, you killed hundreds of thousands of Edo's residents for your own sake, is that it? The evil demon retorted instantly, what nonsense! It was I who granted them a second life. No, I prolonged their existence. Soaring to a level with Zhang Yi, he enthusiastically presented his masterpiece. Within each of them dwells my nomadic bugs. With these bugs, they can live as before, free from fear of freezing to death in the bitter cold. Do you know? I was once this city's maggot, a homeless vagrant. My greatest fear was freezing to death in the dead of night. Now they needn't worry about that either. And with my nomadic insects inside them, any injury, no matter how severe, can be healed. They do not have to do anything, think about anything. They only need to exist as seeds of the Yamato race. To perpetuate this nation's lineage. What's wrong with that? He raised his airy mantis head high, as if reveling in his own deeds. And I am the true savior of Neon. Zhang Yi couldn't refute the evil demon's actions. Perhaps the evil demon was right. Living the same day over and over, without memories of continuity, yet existing in peace, perhaps that was a kind of happiness. But unfortunately, today, Zhang Yi had arrived. Below, the swarming maggots had gathered into a dense mass, surging upward toward the sky. Behind them lay the entire population of Edo, 500,000 souls. But did Zhang Yi care? Of course not. I only intended to reclaim what belongs to my Huashu kingdom, then depart. Zhang Yi raised the sword in the tree in his hand. The green blade was now tinged with silver gray, emitting a faint, chilling glow. The second form of the sword in the tree, fused with nanobots, allowed it to transform into a metal sword as resilient as the Holy Judgment, even sharper. Now, I have no choice but to turn all of Edo into a ghost town. Zhang Yi held no interest in slaughtering cities. Though not a soft-hearted man, he was no bloodthirsty butcher either. But if forced, he would not hesitate. Then, slaughter it is. It might be slower, but you don't seriously think I'm weak in close combat, do you? Zhang Yi swept his left hand, instantly slowing time within a 3-kilometer radius around him. Speed acceleration, 100-fold. In his eyes, the writhing sea of maggots seemed frozen in time. To kill the evil demon, he must eliminate the entire maggot sea. These creatures fueled its power. So, it would be a slow kill. Zhang Yi dove downward. The silver sword in the tree in his hand grew enormous, transforming into a 40-meter-long greatsword. He aimed it at the maggot sea below and slashed it down with all his might. This was destined to be a long-lasting battle. But some people seemed unaware that a certain individual, since their debut, had always been renowned for their endurance. Meanwhile, things were getting dangerous over at Lian Yu's end. She had been dragged into the Infinity Sword domain by Narumi Shuji. Here, there were swords and blades stuck into the ground everywhere, allowing Narumi Shuji's 1,000-sword stream to be executed to perfection. His sword skills were extremely proficient, his techniques devious, and crucially, the entire battlefield could be utilized to his advantage. Sword throwing, dual wielding, flying blades, and swirling blades, the sheer variety left Lian Yu scrambling to respond. Lian Yu's approach, however, was remarkably steady. Alone with a single sword, she formed a Tai Chi circle around herself with its edge. Blue ki energy swirled around her, effortlessly repelling every blade that struck toward her. Thousands of swords flowed through his hands with effortless grace, not a single one was wasted. Infinite, 1,000-sword stream. Narumi Shuji gripped 2 legendary swords. Instantly, every blade on the battlefield soared into the air, all pointing toward Lian Yu. He bent his knees slowly, then charged straight at Lian Yu in an instant. Simultaneously, thousands of swords plummeted from every direction. All angles around Lian Yu were covered, no blind spots, only lethal strikes. 1,000 strikes in an instant. Their speed was staggering, compounded by the swordmaster's frontal assault. Facing this onslaught, Lian Yu performed an astonishing maneuver. She closed her eyes. Since the attack was without blind spots, her physical eyes could never possibly track every sword hurtling toward her. But the mind's eye knows no bounds. Her hands gripped Dragon's Roar, the sword angled toward the ground. The instant she closed her eyes, a whole new world opened up. Beyond a 500-meter radius centered on her, lay an endless void of darkness. Within that 500-meter sphere, however, everything became crystal clear and slowed to a crawl. True masters excel at learning others' abilities and making them their own. This technique originated from the master of the Eclipse Moon Sword style she had once slain, Tsukamoto Nobunaga, a fully licensed practitioner of the Nitin Ichiryu. Though Tsukamoto Nobunaga's strength might pale beside the current Narumi Shuji, in the realm of swordsmanship, he truly represented Neon's pinnacle. centered on oneself, within a single square inch, the blade could reach any point in an instant. This technique was called Heaven's Origin.